Welcome everybody. This is the notes for lesson 1, muscular system in anatomy. So let's get right to it. So this is a little bit of an introduction to the muscular system. These are some of the functions of the muscular system. Some of them are quite obvious. Obviously body movement is primary, and that is the big one. The second one listed there, the maintenance of posture, is often something that people forget to mention. So in order to stand upright, to keep a steady position, you need muscles as well, because without them, you would just collapse. So that muscle tone, that ability to stabilize yourself is very important. And obviously, that's actually also a lot of physical therapists work with that, so that they try to develop the muscles that maintain good posture to help things like your back and your legs and things like that. Respiration, so breathing, obviously important. We have a couple muscles that help with that. The diaphragm is obviously the most important for that, but there are others that help you breathe. Production of body heat, that's an overlooked one. That is where all the heat from your body comes from, is that ability to, they can actually produce heat directly from ATP. It's a common misconception out there that your muscles cannot produce heat unless they are shivering, and that's not true. They produce more heat when they're shivering, but you do not need that. You do not need to shiver to produce heat. Communication, so the ability to talk, and believe it or not, nonverbal communication is incredibly important as well. So just facial expressions, things like that, are all very important. Constriction of organs and vessels, so digestion, blood flow, all incredibly important. So the ability to move things along through your stomach, your small intestines, your large intestines, that's all very important. The ability to constrict blood vessels at certain points and open them up at other points. And then, of course, last but not least is your heartbeat. That obviously is pretty major. So types of muscles. So there are 3 types of muscles we'll talk about. First is cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is found in the heart. Kind of self-explanatory. It is the only place you find cardiac muscle. The cells are branched, so they're not quite as organized as some of the other muscles that we'll talk about. They have one nucleus, one central nucleus. They do have these things called striations. So if you look at this diagram, you should be able to see that there's these little things that go across the muscle. Those are called striations. Under a microscope, they look like little tiny hairs. And it is part of the ability for that muscle to contract, and we'll explain that in the next couple weeks. These notes always sound a little bit weird. Is under involuntary control, meaning your brain does not control your heart. You do not need signals that go directly from your brain to your heart to have your heart beat. They also have these things called intercalcated discs. It is essentially the ability of the heart muscles to connect to each other, so that when one heart muscle contracts, the neighboring heart muscles cells also contract. So it makes the entire heart behave as a single cell. And obviously only found in the heart, and their job is to propel the blood through the body. Smooth muscle. Smooth muscle we will not spend a lot of time on. But that doesn't mean it's not important. So smooth muscle is the least organized of the 3 muscles. They have cells that are spindle shaped. Think an elongated football. And it has one central nucleus, and it does not have striations. So you cannot see those little threads going across the muscles there. It is also involuntary, so you do not think about using them. They often, when grouped together, have cell-to-cell attachments that allow them to work as a unit as well. And where you find them is around the organs of your body, so around your stomach, around your small intestines, around your blood vessels, and even at the all kinds of places, like the hairs on your arm have little smooth muscles attached to them that actually, when you get goosebumps and things like that, that's actually a smooth muscle that's actually making that hair follicle stand up. And its jobs are to compress organs, to squeeze things through tubes, such as your digestive system. It constricts blood flow at certain points. So they are incredibly important. But again, your brain does not directly control them. They're controlled by a whole series of different responses. Many of them are, for example, part of your swallowing response is involuntary, and it's actually just pressure on certain parts. As soon as the food is sensed there, the muscles will contract, and it'll help you swallow. Skeletal muscle is the one that we will talk the most about. These cells are long, they are very large, they are very cylindrical and very organized, and you can see that the striations are very pronounced in these cells. They have multiple nuclei, meaning they have more than one nucleus. They are under voluntary control, which means your brain must send a signal for these to move. And they are generally attached to bone. There are exceptions to this. There are some skeletal muscles that are not directly attached to bone, but they still fall into that category. And their job is to move the body and maintain body position. 4 characteristics of skeletal muscle. So these things are what makes skeletal muscle be able to do the job that it does. So the first one is contractility, the ability to forcefully shorten. So that's all that muscle can do, is just they can make themselves shorter. And it pulls 2 points together. So that is the number one most important characteristic, but the other 3 are still very important. The excitability is the ability to be excited, the ability to be signaled by a nerve, typically, and that is what causes the skeletal muscle to start to forcefully shorten. And then extensibility. So one of the most key features is that ability that once you actually shorten, you have to be able to stretch yourself back out. And so when the muscle is relaxed, it can be stretched. So that's another important characteristic. And then last but not least is the idea of elasticity. This idea that even when muscles are at rest, when you overstretch them, they actually act a little bit like a rubber band and pull back. And the best example I can give you is when you hold up your hand and hold your fingers all the way open, you're obviously tightening the muscles that are attached in the back of your hand, because what happens is that when you relax your hand, you notice your fingers do that. And that is because the muscles in the front of your hand are acting a little bit like rubber bands, and that's the elasticity that's pulling those back a little bit. So there is a little bit of a rubber band effect with some of these muscles. So those are all the notes. It's a pretty short note session, so make sure you remember these 4. You'll see them again. I'm sure there will be a test question somewhere about this. So, and if you have any trouble understanding them, just let us know. Thanks. Bye.